is just basically they're like, you're just trying to get publicity because your games aren't good enough.
People are weird.
Yeah, he was like,
weird.
He's like, so I'm trying to do like games that are not likely to sell lots of copies to get attention.
Yeah, exactly. I would not like to have success. I'm too good for success, and I'm hoping that my aversion to success attracts people. That's logical. That's what
attracted me to you.
Yes. And now I have won. I have won. My victory condition has been met.
Hi all.
Oh boy.
Hey, yo,
Trent is here, and we've got it seems as though we have a chat room here that has been maybe getting a few beers here, waiting for us to show up. But we're here, guys.
Man, when I was up in Madison, we ate at this place called the Long Table. It was like a beer cafe. Oh my god, there was like a beer. Once I saw the name of it, I looked at my wife. I'm like, I will order this because it was from Evil Twins Brewing Company, and the name of the beer was Even More Jesus.
Dude,
I am causing somewhat of a controversy on this episode. I apologize. I didn't realize my review premise would cause so much discussion.
Yeah.
I just
no, dude. I think you were just being a troll when you said that, TC. I mean, I'm gonna call you out here. You said Pandemic Legacy, spoilers included, and it's like, I don't want to get it spoiled. Like,
I just usually put disclaimers, the crap that might inadvertently fall out of my mouth as a general rule of thumb, no matter what I do.
I did want to point out here real quick that rather than having my own hype, I'm just going to chime in on what TC and Joe both put down.
Yeah. Sounds good, dude. Yeah.
Oh wait, we have notes. When did we start doing that? No.
Right. Thanks, Andy. I'm glad that you have come up to date and that the notes that I put together every week are functioning for you.
Yeah.
Such a sweetheart Andy is. We have
proved
David,
we're not
we have
podcasting by a fax machine.
Podcasting via fax machine. Oh, by the way, we have Carter joining here in the chat. Carter, my student from last year, who unfortunately is not going to be able to take Spanish 1 a second time. But just so you know, Carter, a fax machine. Never mind. You'll never need that.
Yeah, I'm actually old enough that I've heard this sound in a science class. You hear beep.
Yeah. Is that right after the, like, what does this do with the sound of an explosion following it? Or
no, I have to explain to my students when they complain about the videos I'm making them watch, and I'm like, in Bill Nye when they show that like horrid old cartoon with a really boring narrator voice, I had to do that for half an hour. So take your Bill Nye and like it.
Take your medicine. You will like it.
That's right. Well, the fax machine, I'm pretty sure Bill Nye would be diametrically opposed to the fax machine. It's just a waste of paper, dude. It just yeah.
Oh, hey,
I want a dot matrix printer.
Trent, before we start, I want to tell you I have a new life goal that involves you. One of my bucket list things now is if we ever make it to HeavyCon, both of us, we're gonna claim a table and just play L5R for hours and see if we get anyone's attention.
I am 100% going next year, so
yeah, I'm gonna try to swing it next year. So like everybody's like playing these. They're like, yeah, me and Trent, we're gonna play some L5R for a while. So I want to see what his deck does.
L5R, play Dune.
Like Keyforge, you'll be able to take that to a pretty far point. But anyway, we'll get into that because that's going to be in our hype and stuff. Hey, something special just for tonight, guys. Would you guys mind humoring me and kicking up your Audacity or your whatever type thing that it would be, like Audacity, GarageBand, whatever program you'd like to use, and just recording your own tracks?
Oh, I will have to go to the other computer to do that because this computer does not have
Never
access anymore.
mind. Never mind.
I can do it. Just give me about 5 or 10 minutes to like jump to the other computer.
No, TC. It's good. We're all here and we're all ready to go.
Okay.
It was, you know what? It'll do. It'll do.
And I'm running on my phone anyway, so there's.
That's not gonna happen. Okay.
You were part of the conversation, Lumin.
Sometimes we have pipe dreams and they don't end up coming to fruition. So we'll just file that one away together with my Diet Mountain Dew. So anyway, guys, are we getting ready? Are we okay to kick them off here? I mean, we have David, we have Murr, we have Carter, and I'm looking forward to this, dude. It's been so long.
It's been 2 weeks, man. We've got a lot of things to get through.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm closer to Lumin at this point because I saw him at one of the conventions I was at. And I know he was at the other one.
Yeah, but I didn't see you at Gen Con either, so.
No, we didn't see each other there. But there was like kind of an attempt, like sort of. It was like it was. And then I think that life just got the better of both of us. Like
that's how Gen Con meetups usually go. I mean, you plan.
The standard Gen
Con
meetup.
I want to see you there. You're my friend, and then 4 days go by, and not an attempt was made. So.
No, well, I mean the way that it always happens, I think the appropriate Gen Con meetup is the I don't use Facebook Messenger. I'm really sorry I didn't get this until now. Like, and you send that on like the Monday after Gen Con. So that's the pretty standard Gen Con greeting, the Gen Con meetup. So is done on Facebook Messenger like the next day after the convention is over because you are crawling around people like it is.
Yeah, I thought the Gen Con meetup was when you got smashed when the doors open to flow in. I guess like smashed all together.
Yeah, for one moment, everybody is touching everybody.
Yeah.
Preceded by the VIG standing in front of you on the other side of the divide, showing all the games you can't get that they bought out.
And it's you hold up your phone and it's got a picture of Seafall on it, and you're like, and you say da na na na, which TC is gonna disagree. He's gonna take issue with that, right?
No, because that is probably the last few games we played. That's probably the swingiest damn game I've ever seen in my life. But that does not mean it's not a lot of fun because I took down the lead player by doing the most random crap I've ever seen in a game in my life. It was the most amazing gaming moment I've had just to watch the look of defeat on this guy's face because he was trying to do the same things I was. He just was failing. I just took off. Yeah.
Nice.
Now, I'm not saying it's a good game. I'm saying it's an entertaining one.
For sure. All right. Well, let me make sure that I've got here. I've got my pop-up chat in my left. I've got my Hangout here in the right, the Hangout Live, and then the one thing that I need to be able to toggle is our actual episode outline, which I've got now. So, gentlemen.
Are we ready?
3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host, Joe Sallin. Happy to be back after a couple of weeks off. And I've got a special guest to welcome to the show for the first time, Lumin. Hey, how you doing, Lumin?
Hey, Joe, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Lumin is going to make us all jealous in this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. He has a very interesting story, a unique sort of turn-of-life events that have led to him having a wealth of experience to draw from about different board game conventions. He will tell you more about that later on. But it's going to be Lumin headlining here as our guest and as our topic contributor. But we have the whole gamut of our contributing co-hosts that are here to join, starting with TC Reed, who looks like he's got like the Rocco's Modern Life fan blowing on an ice cube right into his own face. How's it going out there in Portland where he's dealing with temperatures as high as 76 degrees?
It hit 85. I'm melting. I think the heat from all the forest fires in California is just drifting north up here at this point. But yeah, we're doing good. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys, so it's good to be back yakking with you. I got lost in Warframe for the past 2 weeks. It was nice to be back among the living.
Well, I have another name for 85 degrees and up, and that would be not the winter here in Iowa. So that's That's immediately a positive thing to say. And speaking of Iowa, I've got a couple of folks from Iowa, and I think we're all back now, right? Aren't we, Andy?
What? Yeah.
You're back in Iowa. You're no longer in Madison, right? The old
No.
to Madison, Wisconsin for your journeys, right?
Yeah, that was really good. It was a fun time. We went. No, this was only that we went to a town that specializes in trolls.
So like you?
Mount Horeb.
Mount Horeb.
Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
And we went to the National Mustard Festival at the Mustard Museum.
I'm actually jealous of that, dude. That sounds really awesome.
It is amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of my sausages and mustard.
Yeah. Well, and if you wanted to use ketchup there, they charged you $10.
As you should. So yeah, my brother needs to hear that. Anyway, we've also got Trent, Trent is contributing from Iowa as well, right? Trent, you've made it back from the darkness.
I came back earlier today. Yes, I have been out of Iowa for 2 weeks, maybe a while, but I'm back now.
Well, welcome, man. Iowa needed you. By the way, Andrew Dennison and Trent Ham are normal contributing co-hosts together with TC Reed, and it's great to have you two, Lumin. Back to we're going to hear about your board gaming taste and how your perspective is going to contribute to making this one of the most colorful shows in board games. Why don't we kick it off here with our well, actually, first, thanks to our sponsor, Game Surplus. Check them out, bringing the world of board games to you at GameSurplus.com. In the last couple of weeks, I did get to meet Carmen in person for the first time, and yeah, he's a great guy.
And he's not sponsoring us anymore.
I'm going to sound honest when I say that. No, Carmen was fantastic. He put me up at WBC, and it was a really great time getting to meet him. And I've never met a person who is more just wants to spread the hobby at any cost to himself. And I mean, like, before he took over Game Surplus, he was just the dude who was just constantly giving out games to people. And I mean, it hasn't changed much, as we will figure out from Andy when we talk about his review game, which is we're bending the rules here, as we always do at the Good, the Board, and the Ugly. That's what the rules are made for, right? They're made
rules?
to be bent. So yeah. What rules exactly? TC, I don't think TC ever got the rules document. That I sent him.
I think that was before my time.
That's why it's been so awkward. I apologize, everybody, for the last.
I was the only one who's required to sign away my firstborn to be a co-host.
Well, Andy, it's just until we get to a certain point. It's not a permanent thing. Like you don't trust me?
My daughter's a 17-year-old teenager. Signing her over was not that hard.
Oh, boy. So anyway, check them out, GameSurplus.com. So we're going to kick off our reviews before we get into our topic, which will be Lumin and his recent excursions in the board gaming convention world. And then we will be hyping games on our way out the door. So anyway, Lumin, you know probably very little about what we do for reviews. So I'm going to be polite to you, because usually I like to put our people on blast right at the very beginning. But we'll let you sit back and listen for a moment. We'll set the bar low by having TC.
Wow. Okay. Word.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm ready to be put on blast if needed, but I'm glad I'm not going to be.
Oh, no, you're absolutely fine. Like,
look, a bus.
I'm so bad at transitions that the only consolation I have is to like turn them into insults. Like that's all I got, man. But you know, don't worry. Like when it comes to you, I'll try to be nice and everything. Like, you know, grumble. But let's go ahead and kick it off with Trent. Trent, why don't you tell us about this time traveling journey?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about Temporal Odyssey, which is a 2-player game from Level 99 Games. It came out pretty recently. It was a pre-Gen Con release, but not by much. I had it about 2 weeks before Gen Con. And my wife and I have been playing it quite a bit. So it's a 2-player dueling game, and it's a hand-building game. If you played something like Lewis and Clark, the idea will feel familiar to you. Basically, the game is, and weirdly, it also reminds me a little bit of Netrunner. I think Netrunner is actually a good comparison for this game. So basically, it's a 2-player dueling game. You have a handful of cards. bringing out cards costs actions. On your turn, you have 4 actions. You have to spend some number of them to bring out actions. Many of the cards are just characters akin to magic, where they have a special ability on them and they have a power and a toughness, and that indicates how they can fight. You have to spend an action to make one character fight. You have to spend some number of actions to bring out a character. You have to spend some number of actions to play a spell, and you only have 4 per round. So you have to think very carefully about what you're doing. Then after you've done all that, and you've decided all your attacking and everything, you have to group up your characters in groups of 1 or 2. And then you draft out. There's 3 draft stacks in front of you. And you basically look at the top 3 of any of them, choose one, trash another one, and put the third one on it face up so that they can see which one is on top of a stack. That gives you some insight as to what you might be getting if you choose the draft from that particular stack. The stacks are called past, future, and present. You know generally what's in them, and the stacks are only 20 cards high, and you're drafting 3 out of them. So you're going to probably get something akin to what you want if you're going for a particular stack. That's the only real random element in the game, and it's not really all that random. The more you play it, the really realize it's really not very random. The interesting part is if you play the spell cards, you have to pay one of your actions to actually put that spell card back in your hand and cast it again. So this game is very much about managing actions. It's a lot like Netrunner in that regard. The fact that your guys are grouped up, which means it has a guy in front that's blocking for the guy, protecting the guy behind it, feels almost like you're running on servers akin to Netrunner, except without the mystery. You kind of got to pound through the guy in front to get to the guy behind. And so you keep going back and forth like this, spending 4 actions. The game is won by, you start the game with a guy in play, and he represents you. And you also start with 6 cards in hand that are distinct based on who the guy is that represents you. So there's like characters that come with like 8 cards, basically. And most of them are unique for each character, so each one feels different. You start off with a card that represents you, and basically a wall or a castle to defend him or her, and then 6 unique cards in hand. And so you play that way. The game ends when you get 3 of these cards that are called I can't remember the term for it, but they're basically like time warps. There's a term that the game uses for it, but I can't remember what it is. It's like impulse or something like that. You draw those from a separate deck. But basically, when you get 3 of them and you have 3 of them and your guy dies, you lose. That's how the game works. Whenever your guy dies, when you don't have 3 of them, you don't lose the game then. But what happens is instead you have to draw one of those cards that take you closer to losing. And you basically, it's very difficult to ever get rid of them. So this is a dueling game where every action is really tight. You cannot waste an action. You can't sit around dawdling and like powering up and like getting a whole bunch of lands out and do 50
Take my action to drawing a card, drawing another card, now playing an economy card, now drawing another card.
Yeah, there's none of that comboing. You can't really combo out in this game. Every action is vital. You can't waste an action in this game or you will lose, I'm telling you. And that's part of what's fun about it. You got to sit there and what actions can I get the most value out of? Added to that is the fact that each character plays very differently. There's 6 characters in the game, and there were 2 extra promo ones that I picked up. And each one plays very distinctly. They play very differently. Adding, again, this is a level 99 game, so there's a lot of variety. Is those past, present, and future decks, the ones that you're drafting from to get more cards in your hand so you can play more stuff, they're composed of each one of them has a particular or character type in it, 3 of them. It's like the past deck has 3 different character types out of 6 possible ones. You choose those at the start of the game. So like you might have race A, race B, race C, D, E, and F that's future ones, and any 3 of those might be in the future deck. And there's a completely different set for the present. So what I'm saying is each game is going to have a different makeup of those stacks you draft from, but they're so small, you're going to get kind of what you want out of them. So what it means is the game just feels differently based on what's in those decks. You have a lot of control over what you get out of them, but what they're composed of at the start of the game changes how the game works quite a bit. It's a really solid game. I was really impressed with it. If you want a good 2-player dueling game that just comes in a box for $20, this is one definitely to get. My wife and I played this repeatedly over the last couple of days. We've been playing it, actually, I don't even know how many times we played it. And it feels like we're getting better at it, but it both feels like someone who is good at this would crush us. Because it's so much about getting every little bit of value you can out of each of those actions. And man, it's a good way. I think it's best if you're learning it with another person.
Yeah.
Like, you're not sitting down with an expert, because I think an expert would smash you with this. I really do. I don't know that because I've really only played it with my wife, and we've both been going up the learning curve together. But it's really been a fun ride, and if you have someone to consistently play this with, it's well worth the $20.
Wow, that's a pretty...
Yeah, it's Temporal Odyssey. It's from Level 99 Games. It's about the small box game. Pretty small box game, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, $20, dude. That's a really low bar. And from what you've said, like, you know, Android Netrunner, RIP, never forget, right? What's gonna replace it for Trent? And from looking at your review and your hype, I'm like, he's gonna have to make some choices. But it sounds like this game is pretty easy to crack into, but then one that you can just continue to try. And now, was this on Kickstarter, or did they?
Trent? It was Kickstarted, but they Kickstarted it with a whole bunch of other games all at once.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I don't remember.
It was a dueling game library. I think they led it with Temporal Odyssey, but it was really for like a set of games. We haven't actually delved into a lot of the other ones because I ended up getting all of them. But Temporal Odyssey is a winner. I'm telling you, if you see that one out in the store and you have about $20 to spend and you have any interest at all in digging into a 2-player dueling game that just all fits in one box, that's really solid.
Cool, dude. Well, you made it sound really interesting to me. I mean, it does sound like one that, you know, if you're going to buy it, though, understand that you kind of want to find another partner to teach it and learn together and then kind of grow into that game, because otherwise you end up with those weird discrepancies, which I'm sure Lumin, as a competitive Agricola player, is used to having occasional bits of, you know, a meatball, as we know them. You know, he's many different names for them, but a meatball will show up and play with you and will proceed to try to serve themselves up to whoever is wanting to just take a bite of their game.
Yeah, on the person on their left. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's right. I'll sit next to the. Hold on. Where's the new player sitting? All right, I'll sit to their left. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
the best phrase I heard for that recently was teddy bear. Just, I was playing a game with an expert and 2 teddy bears.
Yep. I feel like I should probably just start wearing a big teddy bear mascot suit then, because that's me. When I sit down at that game, it's like, okay, well, who am I going to bounce off today? It depends on the game, though. It depends on the game. So, but very cool sounding game, Trent. And, you know, for $20, it sounds like there's a lot there. So that was Temporal Odyssey. And now let's go ahead and now let's roll into TC's neck of the woods. And he's going to tell us about trying to keep spoilers out of a review, but
I will try. But before I say anything, I will get consensus from the group before I proceed further. How about that? First of all, Trent, I thought you said temporal artery, and I was madly looking this game up. Then I had to check the notes for Temporal Odyssey. Thus, this is what happens when you have someone who works in anatomic pathology.
Well, temporal artery. Oh, oops, artery. That's different. Yeah, that's the maintenance of otters. But temporal artery. Geez, sounds like what you need to do to keep Richards, to keep him alive. Like, you have to go back to what his blood was like before all the drugs.
Well, I'm glad it's just not a vein from your forehead. That's all I got to say. Anyway.
The temporal lobe. Oh my goodness, TC. Yeah. I'm a dumb bio person, so I don't know these things, man. I get what you're saying now.
Yeah. So we finally finished Pandemic Legacy Season 1, which we started when it came out in 2015, which should give you an idea when to expect my review of Seafall 5 years from now. But we finally wrapped up Pandemic Legacy Season 1, and I feel like I can finally talk about it. And without giving too much away, I can safely say that while this game is probably not one of my top 10 games of all time, it is definitely one of the top 10 experiences I've ever had with a game. And a lot of it has to do with the mechanics of the game and the permanence of things that happen and the hard choices that you have to make that will permanently scar or affect the board forever. And there are moments in this game that I will never forget. And there's a few I'd like to share without giving too much away. One of them was the reason it took so long for us to finally play the game finish it is that one of the guys we played with just kind of flaked out on us. So we finally roped my daughter in to finish out the last 2 months because we really, really, really want to start season 2, and we have season 2 in Shrink, and it keeps taunting us. But we're like, we can't do season 2 till we finish season 1. So we got Kate finished up, and I was playing a character that was named after my daughter, Dr. Catherine Reed, and she survived the game up till at least November. We're doing good. The first game my daughter plays with us, her character dies.
Oh,
and it was because can I spoil how outbreaks work in this game and what it does to the board, or is that too much? What do you think? Do any consensus on that? I mean, you learn pretty quick, like the first time you play this, how this works.
What do you think, Trent?
Sure, I played it. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like, when an outbreak happens, this number increases on the city. So it goes from like panic to outbreak to falling to the very last collapse. And if you're in an area that's collapsed, you are done.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And my character was in there. She took it for the team to prevent it, and she died. And my daughter actually got the privilege of ripping her own character up.
I feel like for Kate though, she was probably just fine with it. I feel like she was just fine.
She was losing her mind. Like, we can rip cards up, we can sticker the board. She is like, we're doing season 2 as soon as humanly possible because the 3 or 4 games we played as season 1 sold her. And I just want to say for the record, the way this game ends is insidious because it makes you want to play the whole darn thing again to see if you can't do better. I could not believe that. I'm like, do you want me to throw another $70 at this thing just to do it again? And I want to do it. But
no, I get what you're saying, dude.
Yeah. I just want to say, if you are borderline on Pandemic, if you maybe don't like it, give this thing a shot. It will probably be one of the most memorable games you will ever play. And as far as I'm concerned, man, holding up on number 2 overall on Board Game Geek, it deserves it, and it does things that I've never seen, and it is just a whole heck of a lot of fun. And yeah, we actually wrote notes down in the back of the books. We won't forget what happened, all the crazy things that went down in that game. It's good. And
that's awesome.
I don't care for Pandemic that much or cooperatives. I'm okay with that because I'm hooked on Arkham. But yeah, if you haven't played Legacy Season 1, do it. You will have a blast with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's my review. Did I spoil too much? Am I good?
No, you do.
All right.
TC, you were perfectly fine. Like, I don't even think I would have asked for permission, knowing what you were gonna say. Like, no, you're fine, dude. None of that. That's all like stuff that you know. Like the rule book teaches you that. Like those are things that you will know before you even start your first game. So that's just like base game mechanisms. You're totally cool.
Yeah, just watching my daughter go, this is your character. I played her for all the. You have to do it. I can't do it, Kate. Okay. Just rip that thing to shreds. Oh, and I can do this and do this stuff. Oh, I get that. We made her sticker. Oh, wow. Yeah, play it with your kids. You will not regret it.
We lost a character who we had called Colonel Sanders, and it's been mentioned by Carter in the chat here. But yeah, it was one of those where like the first like Colonel Sanders did not last long in our game. It was pretty quickly dead. So yeah.
And I think half the charm with this game is just being able to. What makes it memorable is how you customize it, right? Like we named the blue disease broke out in Essence, so we called it Con Crud, right?
Of course,
we were just yellow became Yellow Drip, right? Just crazy names, right? It's going nuts with this thing. Good stuff. Good stuff, guys.
It sounds just fantastic, TC. I'm glad that you had that connection because I finished Pandemic Legacy also recently and had just a really great experience getting through to the end. And I felt that same way that you did. You know, I didn't so much feel like I wanted to invest more. I more wanted to see where Pandemic Legacy Season 2 was going to start things off. So hopefully, Lumin, we didn't ruin anything for you.
And ours, because it started in Spain, the yellow disease was called Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Speaking of con crud, Lumin, have you been pretty good for that so far?
Yeah, I've been pretty good, getting barely enough sleep, eating somewhat healthy. You just have to get the margin and you'll be okay. Once you cross the threshold into, I really need sleep, I'm drinking too much coffee, that's when the con cred hits,
Oh boy. Yeah, I've dodged it so far as well.
Yeah, con cred doesn't usually hit to you. You get back and you're like, man, my throat, what's this? And then you know badness is about to happen.
I totally shouldn't have made out with that guy I was playing diplomacy with, but it was...
and he still betrayed me. I
was going to say I ended up winning, so it was worth it, but no, I like that better. All right, well, let me take the review here, Lumin, and that way you can having seen everybody's traditional reviews, because I don't want you to hear Andy's, because Andy's gonna do something else.
When doesn't he do something else?
That's true, yeah. And now for something else from Andy Dennison. So, but first, I'm going to talk about the Amun card game. And so a lot of times you hear a card game version or a dice game version, you think how does this take what I like about the base game and distill it? Amun the card game, do not go into it with that in mind. There are elements that connect to the Amun board game, but more than anything, Amun to me feels like a mixture of the sort of we're all going to get one card here. It's just how much you pay and which one you get, and that's from a game for sale, the auction, where you're auctioning off properties. But Amun the card game is actually regions, and you'll have 3 of them. Each person will have 3 of them at the end of every round, and you'll score based on whichever region has the least pyramids. So you're still building pyramids, but more than anything, the base system feels like a mixture of a pre-constructed token deck system of Raw, where in Raw you've got all these different tokens that are worth different values. Instead of money in regular auctions, you have to bid with tokens, and so each person only has a certain amount of tokens in Raw. In Amun it's cards, and your cards all have different values, and you can choose whatever cards you want at the start of the round, but those cards have to equal whatever total of money that you have. So if you have $16 to spend, you could do that in any combination of cards, 0 through 8, that add up to 16. You get your 0 for free. You always have the 0. It's like a pass. So what you're trying to do is jockey to get the right card, and this is kind of like an 18xx waterfall auction, Andy. It's because each person will get one, so it's like you go around bidding on which one you want. You can kick somebody out, outbid, and that prolongs the round, or you could just all decide sort of peacefully, okay, well, I think that's a fair price. I'm not going to outbid him for that. And then you can just all kind of end the bidding round conceivably in a single bidding round, right? Right, Andy? That's like what 18xx waterfall auctions are like. Once everybody's decided on what they want, it's just bang, 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 and that ends the round.
That's only when you're being nice.
Well, of course you're not going to be playing Amun the card game like that, because if you don't make somebody pay, they're going to end up, winning the game. So it's a very simple system where scores end up staying extremely tight. I think you could even play extremely suboptimally and still have a comparable score. But then that makes the little pharaoh token that you're fighting over as the game goes on to be first player. That's always the tiebreaker. And so that makes that still very relevant as the game goes on. It just in general, it's a very easy game to teach. It's a great auction game where it has this sort of, you start the round by trying to choose which cards you want to have, and you don't even realize how much impact the choices that you've made are going to have, because you're like, okay, well, I've got the 7. That's the only guy that has the 8, but he's already winning an auction, and he's probably going to win that auction, so I can play the 7 and know that I'm probably not going to get outbid by anybody. There's a lot of those types of well, because these other people chose these cards, this is the situation I have. And I love the sort of navigating this, what feels like a hedge maze of auction pitfalls that is present in Amun the card game, and it lends it this feeling of being a classic board game that could have been produced in the 1990s when Reiner Knizia was at his auction prime. And I really have found that I think that it's a beautiful system that has helped that in 2017 it was first produced and it first became available. And I just think that it has a timeless feel that has really led to me enjoying it. However, I would say don't play it unless you have a higher player count. I tried the 2-player game, and it was garbage, darling. It was garbage. Don't ever play it. It was terrible at 2. Shouldn't even be printing a box.
If you have 2 players and you want to play a card game, play Temporal Odyssey.
Absolutely. There you go.
Well, I mean, if it's an auction game in general, that very few of those ever work for 2 players well.
Yeah. So, Amun-Re, the card game, which is it's in the same system as the Amun-Re board game, and it looks like we have a little bit of a disagreement here in our chat. It looks like maybe I've got my okay. All right, good. I don't have my things wrong. I think Amun-Re came out in 2003, and then the card game is 2017. There was a little bit of confusion even when I was talking to the people who were producing it. They were like, no, this just came out. And then somebody else was like, no, this has been out for a long time. It has that weird feeling to where you're like, this feels like it's a classic system that needs to exist, and that, you know, like it feels like it's almost a building block of all the other games that have come since then. But no, it was just released last year. I really do enjoy it. If that sounds at all good to you, it's only a $20 game. But it's for your higher player count. So anyway, I hope that if you try out Amun-Re the card game, you'll have fun making your bidding for the beginning of the round. And anyway, that's my review of Amun-Re the card game. So, nobody else has experience with that one?
No, I've heard of the board game, but not the card game.
I've played the board game, but yeah, I haven't done the card game.
Me too. And the board game is a just much different experience. I feel like this is like a Knizia auction game, whereas Amun-Re, yes, it has auctions, but there's a lot more to Amun-Re than just. I wouldn't feel safe describing it to somebody as another Knizia auction game. It's not like Raw, Medici, Modern Art. It's not one of those that's like just auctions or Dream Factory, Trump Fabric. This is one. Amun-Re, the base game, is got more going on. Amun-Re, the card game, I feel pretty confident in describing it as an auction game. That's really the main thing going on here. The rest of it's definitely in the periphery. So anyway, that's Amun-Re, the card game. And now, Lumin, you've seen it done 3 times. You could not possibly mess it up any worse than us. Your review, sir.
Okay. I believe I wrote down that I was going to review The Mind, which... That's
what you said? Has it changed?
Okay, yes. That's good. I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the right track here. So
Go for it.
The Mind is not like any Euro game I've ever played. It's a lot like a logical puzzle that I got at Nerd Camp one time. So the idea behind it is, I don't know if anybody's heard of this kind of logic puzzle before, but say 100 people are stranded on an island. Each person is wearing their own colored cap, and you have to figure out which color your cap is without being able to look at it yourself or take it off in any way. So I liken The Mind to that kind of logical puzzle. So what it is just a deck of 100 cards, and the cards are very simple. The first card has the number 1 on it, the second card has the number 2 on it, et cetera, all the way to number 100, and that's the full deck, 1 through 100. In level 1, you and your partner, you're trying to beat this game cooperatively, get 1 card each, and you have to correctly, in numerical order, play the cards. So if you have the number 1 in your hand, you randomly drew the number 1, you have to play that card immediately into the middle. So I only played this at 2 players, but I think it's 2 to 4 players actually. And as the levels go on, you get more cards in your starting hand, and you have to just guess what your partners have and hope that you play your cards in the correct order. So you get a certain number of lives to start the game with. You have these tips, I guess I would call them, called ninja stars. You get lives and ninja stars as the game rolls on if you beat levels. And you can play a ninja star to have everyone discard their lowest card in hand, and therefore remove some of the mystery of who should be playing their card next. I thought this was an amazing game. If you've never done this kind of logic puzzle before, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there is a method to the madness. You don't have to blindly wonder what your partners have and if you're playing the right card at the right time. But until you figure that out, it's kind of like, it might feel like a party game where you're just messing up a bunch and having fun losing your lives quickly.
Like the Hanabi sort of game, right? Where you're like, oh no! So did you ever fall into a rhythm where your group was counting like 1, 2, 3, and if you played it on the rhythm? Because I think that the rules say don't do that.
Yes, I mean that's pretty clearly cheating in my opinion. And while that might be one of the ideas that the logic puzzle kind of bases itself on, it's not the full answer at all. So I think it's the fun of it actually is trying to figure out what teammate of yours is doing as the strategy, if they're doing the correct strategy or if they need more guidance in how they're playing their cards, and try to silently adapt to their to your teammates as the game goes on. So you get the first play in, everybody's off tempo, it goes terribly. The second game is a bit better, and the third game, you might get to level 7 because you figured out your teammates' timings of some things, and you're using your ninja stars, and you're gaining the lives right before you lose them. I think The Mind was a Spiel des Jahres nominee. I don't think it won. I think Azul was the winner of that one.
Correct.
So it is highly regarded. It's not complex at all. It's super small. I would guess the price is $10 or $20 because it's just that deck of 100 cards and the 15 or so helper cards. So that would be my review of The Mind, cooperative quick card game.
Very, very cool. Well, thanks for sharing that. Previously, Lumin, Trent had mentioned that, like, in a previous review, that the counting thing is something that just feels very natural and was difficult, for him to really come to terms with that being, a strategy that's prohibited, because it feels like just the ideal way to play. But as you mentioned, like, it's kind of like you have to agree social contract wise that it's like cheating to play like that, right? And so
yes, to explicitly say, let's move the counter up by 5 in our heads every second. That would be like Hanabi in some ways, where you're like, okay, when you have a 5 in hand and it's on your left, then your team has to do this for you to make sure that you don't burn it and stuff like that. So,
like the sort of like like it'd be like in Hanabi trying to make like so that you do a certain amount of taps on the table to communicate without giving a clue, right? So I mean, there is to a certain extent there's a social contract in every game. I like to characterize The Mind as like the teacher practice game, because what you're really learning more than anything else is wait time, because you need to be able to wait when you ask a question. There's a lot of teachers that are like, anybody, okay, I'll answer my own question. But in The Mind, it's like you need to sort of be able to wait for a little while. I got a chance to play a quick demo of this at Gen Con, and it was just for our demo, they only let us get to, I think, level 3. And yeah, there was that moment when it's like, okay, I'm gonna go right now, and hope that nobody else has the card that's gonna be like, There was one time somebody played a card, and I think there was like 4 of us that all had cards that needed to go first, and it's like, dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's definitely one that you can get better at as it goes on. But I do think that like that ideal, I would say that Hanabi's a bit tougher. It's a bit more explicit when cheating is cheating, whereas like in The Mind, the cheating can be a lot more sneaky and tougher to distinguish. But it's still like a very cool concept and something that I thought was very unique and like another one in that sort of the game, Hanabi, The Mind now.
Right. Right.
The social experiment of Gen Con 2018.
Absolutely. And like I said, it's not like any Euro you would try to play or a war game at all. It's just a quick card game. But it appeals to the same like type of thinking. It's a logic puzzle, even though it's not a classic game in any way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, thanks for sharing, Lumin, and great job with your review of with your first review on the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. By the way, we have a special announcement coming from Andy here in lieu of a review, or in lieu of a review in the loo, which would be what Trent just did, right, Trent?
Sure.
Yeah.
Trent, we can never see Trent, so you never know exactly where he's at. So just assume it's in the bathroom, and that way when he insults you, you feel like I just picture him with his pants off, and it doesn't hurt so bad.
Okay.
I'm a crazy person. I talk.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, so basically what I'm going to talk about, because I haven't had a chance to do a lot of board gaming the last couple weeks anyway, is the Good and the Bored and the Ugly, as well as working with Game Surplus, is going to be running a contest. There's a couple more details to work out, so my goal is actually I'm going to post the rules on the Guild, the Board Game, or not Board Game Geek, the Board Game Geek, the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly Guild page tomorrow, of what it's going to be about. But so the basic idea of the contest is this. So the idea is basically my house is on fire. I've successfully, gotten out all of the children, pets, animals, and whatnot. And but I haven't saved any of my board games. And I look over, and there are 3 games on the shelf right now, or basically on the table. And your goal then is to guess which one I would save. And then you're going to email that to the Good the Board of the Ugly Gmail account, which, Joe, what is that again?
goodboardugly@gmail.com.
Right. So you'll email that to me, and the way it's going to work is you pick one of the 3 games. If you get the number 1 choice, I'm going to give you 3 entries. If you get number 2, 2. If you get number 3, 1. I'll throw it all into a random.org thing, pick actually 2 winners. We're going to have a couple games donated by Game Surplus to give away. That'll be in the rules as well. We got a couple final things to work out on that. And we'll see. We'll let it run for about 2 weeks from the day the episode posts, which, Joe, that'll be probably early next week, right?
It'll be next Wednesday. We'll be back on our regular, Wednesday morning release schedule. That's when I usually put it in there when I schedule it to release.
Right. So we'll do 2 weeks for from next Wednesday. It'll be the time frame. So yeah, you'll just send an email in with your choice. Like I said, go ahead and check out the official rules, a little more detail on the guild page. So that's Guild 2173 to get all those details. The one thing I will tell you is I tried to keep this interesting. So I did not, what I mean by that is I didn't put anything obvious down. So it's not like 3 games, 18 something, Hanabi and yeah. So what I did
Firefly,
is I picked,
right, Andy? I know how much you love
Firefly. Appropriately dies in fire.
What about chess? Hold on. So Andy's wife is like a competitive chess player, Lumin,
right.
and anybody who's unaware of that. So do you save your Simpsons chess copy?
Yeah, actually, she bought her like really expensive chess set at the last tournament we went to, so it's pretty nice. But anyway, there are 3 games I've enjoyed, and I've enjoyed in the past. But I tried to pick ones that basically I would have a hard time categorizing as 1, 2, 3. So my goal over the next few days is to figure out which one's actually 1, 2, or 3.
Well, don't check the GBU email while you're doing that, Andy. So just quickly to clarify, the date that this will be closed by will be August 29th. That will be 2 weeks from next Wednesday, which is the 15th. And
we'll announce the winner on the following show after that. So
should hopefully be able to. Hopefully we can get it all together because we'll be recording the Thursday afterwards.
I'm going to spoil it. The correct answer is Andy runs in, tries to save all 3. The house collapses. He survives, but he emerges as the new Dark Man, avenging evil, with scars all over his face and gauzed up. Right? Do I win?
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. You win all the prizes, man. You got the grand prize and the runner-up, all of them.
No, there was one critical failing.
Maybe a board game version of the Phantom of the Opera, you're like horribly scarred.
No, there's one flaw in your reasoning, TC.
What's that?
That if you've known me, I would always start out trying to be the hero, but I would end up deciding that the human race is not smart enough to run itself.
Oh, okay. So you become a villain. Okay,
those benevolent villains. It's like, I'm not outright just killing people, but it's like, I just got it. They're children. I can't let them just do what they want. They let me teach children for a living. Go figure that one out.
So, Andy, just to clarify here, does the amount of time that you spent print and playing and cutting out every single piece with
none of them are print and plays.
None of them. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, but
they're games I have enjoyed or do enjoy, but they're kind of more of like my secondary, like games I would put in my thing to bring to game night, but wouldn't be the one I would go for first.
Okay. So when we post, this will be available in the Good Board Ugly Guild. That's number 2173. So check the Good Board Ugly Guild for the details, for the finer details when that comes out. And then Andy, these do have to be ones that you have in your collection, or are these also hypothetical games?
All three of these are ones I have in my collection.
All right, so we'll have a link to Andy's collection as well there, so that you can see, so that way you can participate. Just in case you were wondering, Andy's collection is exactly 3 games that are not 18xx. So it'll be if you just say a random year in the 1800s, your chances go up significantly.
Yeah. Oh, and if I didn't mention, we are picking 2 winners. So the first place winner will pick one of the 2 games, and the second place winner will get the other one. Those will be shipped out from Game Surplus. So.
Yep, there will be more details. Certainly, I will actually. I'll make sure before this episode posts, I will put the names of those games in right. The first thing that I announce. I'll say what that is here when I go ahead and put her together. So, but as much as we love talking about details and working the finer details out, I think that it's about time here, Andy, to say thank you very much for putting on this contest, and thanks to everybody who's planning to participate. I look forward to seeing those emails and then marking them as unread so that Andy can go back and actually look at them. And we'll go ahead and move us into Lumin and your story. So Lumin, we've met before, just so everybody understands. I met Lumin at Gen Con 2 years ago when we were competing together in the Agricola World, or not it was the Agricola U.S.
National Championship. Yeah.
National Championship. And that's with a good, we kind of met through our friend Joe Brown, who is known as King Agricola. And I think Joe really prides himself in, being a guy who has everything Agricola and has painted his own yellow pieces, because that's like the only color he can see with his colorblind eyes. Sorry, Joe. I'm not trying to make fun of your struggle, but I love your pieces. So we met through Joe Brown, and then I got introduced to Lumin, who was a very interesting person to talk about Agricola strategies with, and very open to discuss things. And it was interesting to hear his just what the things that went on in your head were very fascinating to me to sort of listen to. So and then when we reconnected at WBC, your story that you told me was just one that I wanted to share with the world. So without further ado, there you go.
All right. So, I mean, if we bring it all the way back to where I started gaming, this would be in my high school days. Me and my friend group, one of my best friends had a cousin who gave board games, Eurogames, for birthday gifts. So the first game was Carcassonne. That stuck pretty well. The next year, this friend got Settlers of Catan, and that was the real stickler in our friend group. We played that days on end. I played that consistently with them, with other friends, online, until I got to college. I somehow stumbled upon the fact that there's a Catan National Championship and a Catan World Championship. And I thought, well, this would be really fun to see just how good I am. So I put up a pretty good performance in my first competition, but wasn't able to beat the really good players. And I recognized there was some skill gap there, but I couldn't exactly figure out what it was because, I'm a math guy and I would pick some great numbers to start on. My games against new players would go super well. And then I'd play these experienced players and go like, what the heck is going on? Why am I getting beaten so solidly? So I kept playing in these competitions. I started talking to the experts and seeing like what the heck they're doing. Started figuring out more things. The key, though, is that these Catan competitions were at regional board game conventions. And through these conventions and that the other players I was meeting, I learned a ton of new games. The one that stuck to me the most was Agricola, being a mathy guy in general. Every move started feeling like an optimization, and that's what got me hooked.
Of your competitive games, would you say then, like, of your competitive games, where do you sort of rank them?
In terms of how I like them or how good I am?
I suppose, like, which one do you value most is what I was thinking, but that might be the same question as how you like them.
I think it's different. I think it's fair to have differences there. In terms of, like, I guess, competitive level, I think the games with more determinism and less luck show a lot more just like how skilled you are and, you know, how much time you've put into a game, how dedicated you are, how well you know the cards or other features of a game. Whereas something like Catan, it has a reputation for being entirely luck, even though there's a ton of skill involved. But at the same time, when you're getting into national competitions, everybody's almost at the same level, and then it goes back to being about a game about luck. So in that sense, I would say for games like Catan, where luck is a higher factor than a game such as Agricola, you should really be playing for the fun of competing at a high level and less about, you know, oh, I got lucky, so I'm the winner this year, or I got unlucky, so I got 42nd out of 48 in the nationals.
Oops,
you know,
I got 42nd out of 48. But then, I mean, like, when the game of Catan ends and you're like, you know, you look at the spread of what was rolled, I mean, I can just imagine that sort of like resulting in you saying like, well, I don't know how I could have won that game.
Right. And actually, in my opinion, when I'm playing with friends or a more casual group, it really is so skill-based, if there's a skill difference at least. It's so skill-based that you can get away with winning when your numbers just suck for a whole game. There's a lot of elements of strategy to the game that I don't think many people quite took the time to learn. So in that sense, there's still enough skill there to be a valuable competition.
Yeah, so like you can soundly beat people, but then once you get to that sort of like where you're fighting with equals, then it becomes a little bit of a different sort of dynamic maybe, but
right.
Sure. I get what you're saying. So, when it comes to what are the ones though that competitively that you have been, I guess, successful with so far?
It really, I guess I would say for now it's Agricola and Catan. The year after we met, I did win the nationals for Agricola, so I got a trip to Germany, all expenses paid, to play in the Worlds.
Yeah,
thank you. It was. I'm not going to be beating that achievement anytime soon. And in Catan, I've been super close to making the semifinal round at nationals for 2 years in a row, so that's pretty consistent. And in the Catan Masters Invitational, I've also been in the top 10 out of 30-something players both years I played. So in terms of performance, I think Agricola and Catan are still my top games. I guess we'll dive into this a bit more detail later, but at WBC this year, I actually won the St. Petersburg tournament out of over 100 players, which was a bit surprising but awesome. And then this year, I played in the Pandemic Survival National Championship as well, which was a nice little surprising event to be taking part in.
Very cool. So what I'm hearing, Lumin, and what I understood when I invited you on is that you are very like drawn to the sort of organized play aspects of games. Does that sound accurate?
Absolutely. I think measuring yourself against competition is a real thrill, at least for me. And getting to do that in a sphere I love, such as board games, really makes a difference. You know, you look forward to the days that you have your tournaments, you get your adrenaline going, you're practicing with your friends the weeks before. Yeah, it's a really different experience than just meeting up every week and playing games, which is great, obviously. But it's definitely different.
And Trent also, I think Trent competed in a couple of tournaments. I know specifically the L5R tournament because I took a creepy picture of him not looking at me.
Stalker.
Stalker. Let's see what's in his build. We're going to go right behind him.
Yeah, what's he looking at on his phone? Hey, Trent. Oh, hey, how's it going? I just been here long enough to tweet this picture of the back of your head. So
your opponent wanted me to take these pictures here behind your head. No.
Yeah, it wasn't in the middle of a game, TC. You're making me sound like I was cheating, dude.
I'm trying.
All right, so Lumin, the big reason that I have titled this episode Board Game Traveler is because of what this last year in your life has been like, right?
Right.
So would you explain to our audience and to our panel here what's been going on for you?
Yeah, so basically I lived in the San Francisco area, and once I graduated college, I got a tech job and moved from tech job to tech job for a few years. Saved up some money, you know, not doing super exciting things. And this year I just decided to go for it and, you know, pursue some things I love, traveling and playing board games being a couple main ones. And, you know, I have savings. I might as well use some of them now. So I decided this year there's some events that, there's no way I would be able to get to if I had a full-time job. I've gone to regional conventions and Gen Con for a bunch of years in a row, but, that takes up a lot of vacation time. Mm-hmm. So to be able to go to WBC and Origins and Gen Con and my regional conventions and a couple other random things, there's no time to have a job. And I figured I'll sacrifice a couple years down the road to have a cool year this year. So that's where the genesis of, going to 7 or 8 different conventions came from.
Very cool. Yeah. So like
you don't have kids, right?
I don't have kids. That's correct.
You get away with it.
Oh, Andy, you know that even if you don't have kids, you're not going to be able to do that.
Oh, probably not. But, if you have a wife, that's the other thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I figured while my love life is not going so well, to make use of that in a different way.
Well, for Andy, the idea of a staycation is like him, an X-Acto knife, and a piece of chipboard that he's like glued a map onto.
Yeah.
So
actually, no, when I was up in Wisconsin, because my wife was actually competing in the U.S. chess tournament up there. Somebody asked me, they're like, so are you doing this, or what are you going to see? And I'm like, I'm sitting here and doing nothing, and enjoying every minute of it.
GBU Solo Con!
Except the time I was going to break out Navajo Wars, and then I came down with a cold. I'm like, I cannot process.
That's the con crud! It's the con crud!
But, yeah, no, it's interesting. Like, I like, looking at people that want to do things in tournaments and competitively, because I just, like, I'm not averse to it, but I have no drive to do that. Like, I'm just a naturally non-competitive person.
Sure. Yeah.
And so, like, the motivation of people who want to do it, I always find interesting.
Oh, Andy, if they have that puffer billy room, I feel like now that you've got like enough 18xx games, I think I could see you getting to that puffer billy room and being like, all right, boys, let's do this.
No, I don't like that, because I don't know. Like, the problem with competitions is, for me, like, I like just kind of talking, having a good time, and then I don't know. I always hate it when someone makes like a mistake, because not like a strategy mistake, but just a mistake because they misinterpreted a rule. And if you're doing that at a convention, you can't really go. Or if you're doing that at a tournament, you can't go, oh, can I use a take back on that? Because that's what you did.
Yeah, we're not going to ask Lumin how he feels about take backsies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it does depend on the game. And like you said, the tournament or not matters. But I've played in some tournaments, notably the WBC ones, where take backs are still cool. We're all trying to have a good gaming experience here. We're not going to ruin your day because we all make mistakes. So.
Well, in the WBC, I've always gotten the hint from the people that have gone there. It's like, yeah, it's a tournament, but everyone's like, yeah. But we're all here to relate.
It's a big deal, but like, really, like, the people who run the tournaments love hearing people say that it's a big deal, right? That's like, because there's one passionate individual that's really putting it on for you at WBC, right? So like the format tends to be, it can depend a lot on the individual running the tournament, and sometimes they can be a little bit controversial because the way that they determine who the finalists are and whatnot.
Right.
It's and I don't want to say that I don't want to make that sound like that's the norm. Like, even if people are upset about how they determine that, usually they'll talk about it and talk to the person. The person's like, yeah, I didn't really know what I was going where with that. So, I mean, it's not like that sort of an environment. It really is a very cordial, like, it's the thing is, though, Andy, you're never going to be able to play the type of game where you're digging in the rule book for rules interpretations constantly. And so you're never going to like tournaments because you just, it's going to be like, I don't know how this works. And you're going to ask somebody else at the table and you're going to be like, I don't know how it works either. So you dig in the rule book. No, that's not what you get in tournaments, dude. It's like you need to know how to play the game and you expect other people to know how to play the game. And really, like,
we're going to play High Frontier in a tournament setting.
And your spaceship goes, boom.
You rolled a 1. You're out of the tournament. No, but some of those like things, like how do you in a tournament figure out like who goes forward or not? Because kind of a morbid story, but this like came up as an issue at my wife's U.S. chess tournament. Um, and I don't know like board game tournaments equivalent, but like in this tournament, like there was $10,000 on the line for first place. Plus, whoever got first place automatically got a seat at the U.S. Championship. And they were in like their last game of Sunday, and literally a guy died. Like he had a huge heart attack in the middle of the tournament, and um, it, and then the tournament people had to figure out how to like adjudicate that, like because there was money in this on the line. They had to be like, okay, what are we gonna do? Is the last game, like people were going back to work on Monday, and so they ended up letting anyone take a draw who wanted to draw. And because normally in chess, like you can't have a draw until you've at least played through a certain percentage of the game. Otherwise, grandmasters would just do that until like the last game because it's the best way to get forward.
Yeah.
But yeah, they had to come up with a really weird way, and that's kind of what I'm wondering is when you start doing things like putting money on the line or trips on the line, whether that can make it a more kind of like tense experience where you could run into people that take it too seriously, and
Yeah. Well, Andy, you also have more experience with that. Like that's what your wife engages in. So I mean, like when you say that you don't like the tournament level play, you're talking about specifically when it connects. I mean, your experience is mostly with chess, right?
Well, yeah, like I watch her play tournaments. I'm not a big tournament person myself, just because I'm not, like I said, I'm not really driven by competition so much as like what weird things can I make this game do. But yeah, but she can, and it gets kind of weird sometimes when I listen to her stories because like 2 years ago when she went to this U.S. chess thing, she's like, my current tournament seems to be filled with equal parts being crushed by grandmasters and winning against small children and making them cry.
And it's like, but the small children have actually won previously, so they're advancing. Yeah.
Yeah, they had. No, one of the guys who was winning the tournament or was like up there was young. Like he's a teenager and he's already almost a grandmaster. It's like crazy.
Jeez, man, it's wow. Yeah. There's like a next level of play, and it's really like if you do want to engage in a game at that competitive level, you kind of have to go out of your sphere to find that a lot of the times. I mean, that's something you have to actively pursue.
And that's kind of what I was wondering on the idea of like, so how much does preparing for your tournaments like influence your game day choices? Like, does that require that you play that mostly or just kind of leading up to it?
For Agricola, at least, I've kind of played that exclusively for most of the last 2 years. And that's kind of not really because I'm preparing for tournaments. It kind of helps me do it, but it is my favorite game far and away, so I might just be playing it anyway. Yeah.
Well, great.
Well, I honestly can see that because like one of my things is my thing is I've dived into all the weird nooks and crannies of the board game world because I was getting bored with sort of mass market.
He was starting to feel normal.
Yeah. Well, no, because like so much of it came up and be like, let's play this new medium to heavy Euro game, and I'm like, I would just rather play Agricola.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I think most medium heavy Euros take so much to fully understand. Like, they're so much deeper than a BGG complexity rating would ever go into. Where, I mean, I think I've talked to my friends about this and they would agree that Agricola is rated like 3.5 something complexity on BGG.
Right.
The level that experts know it at is probably closer to 4 or 4.5, where there's so much tactics and strategy that you really have to understand so you don't miss out on very key ideas in a game.
Right.
And just like the level and depth of those tactics can almost feel like chess, even though I've never been really good at chess. From what I understand about it, you just learn so many strategies and tactics to get to that high level. And in my Agricola playing experience, I kind of felt the same.
Yeah. No, when we ever play Agricola in our local group, it's usually like Joe another guy named Nate who's in our group. And oftentimes it'll be me, Trent, or some others. Whenever it's Joe and Nate in the group we're playing now, I'm like, okay, so I'm playing for third.
Yeah, who's Andy going to give the game to this time?
And then if it's Trent and it's 4-player, I'm almost guaranteed to make third because Trent will try some off-the-wall strategy just to see if it'll work.
Yeah, like he tried the Belgium deck 2-person strategy. Ooh. Wasn't that like 40 points, Trent, though?
Yeah.
With only 2, I mean, you kind of got to give the guy credit. I mean,
well, there's actually one card in the France deck for Agricola that makes a 2-player strategy really viable. It's super fun. It's called Cowboy and Mother. And basically what it does, hopefully most people listening have played Agricola before, but with Cowboy and Mother, you get an extra food at the end of early rounds, an extra animal at the end of mid-game rounds, and an extra field at the end of late-game rounds. So it's really more like you're getting 3 or 3.5 actions per round, but you're only with 2 people. Wow. So it's a really fun game to try. You just like buy all the bonus point cards you can and, have a really pretty farm, but only 2 people and see if that wins you the game.
So speaking of that, like the thing that I always found interesting here, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, TC, just a really quick question. When you play in tournaments, like Agricola is a pretty wide game, and it's also recently been rebooted. So right. I'm pretty sure that even in this last year, you've competed in Agricola tournaments that utilize a totally different card set, yes?
Yeah, and that was actually a big struggle for me at WBC. To give a bit more background, my pretty much entire range of practice for Agricola in the last 2 years was online at playagricola.com. And we played the very standard for the site, the base EIK decks, the 2 best expansions, and then 2 currently playtesting player decks, which are player-made fan decks, which are pretty well balanced, but very different, and you only see them played on that site. So I was playing a very specific set of cards for most of 2 years. I think I've logged 700 games in 2 years online. Really a huge number. And when I get
that's
to...
a lot. Like, Agricola is not a game that you just play like several games in a row. It's like every game is a bit of a commitment, man.
Right.
It's intense.
Yeah, and then at WBC, they use a very base set of cards, like the originals that the game comes with. So that's a different set. And then in the official publishers, official national championships, world championships, they're using the reprinted version that they made about 2 years ago, which has its own, I think, metagame and metagame issues. The game about 10% towards Caverna, which is 10% too much for me. But
yes, take that, Caverna.
I don't mean that as an insult to any Caverna players.
I do. I still own Caverna, though, so I guess I don't really. I still own Caverna.
So, you have to know if you're playing that set of cards, there's more a push towards a resource-heavy game, less bonus points to search for. So you have to, kind of channel your point searching into a very specific area. So just learning the different card sets is a huge deal in Agricola, and can really influence how well you do in a competition.
Right. So one thing to kind of ask about that, because I know, Joe, when I did go to Gen Con a couple years ago, you were in the Agricola tournament.
I had some sour grapes from that. Yeah, some sour grapes.
Yeah. Well, no, it was because you got mad because they weren't drafting the cards.
No, they were doing a 10-3, and I was like, whoa, this is not okay. This is not how we play Agricola.
Yeah.
It's really not, no.
No.
Because
it still is skill. It's still the guy who ended up winning the tournament, I felt like, and the people that were at the final table deserved to be there, and they were players that, had we played with draft, I do not believe that I could have beaten those people at that certain place. So, when it came down to it, they were the skill was able to get there, but it was it took some more swings for some people just because, it's I didn't get the axe in my hand this round. And like you said, there's a meta that developed around that base set. And so does Mayfair's sanctioned tournaments include anything outside of those original 96 cards? Because here in the US, it's been kind of sparse in their publishing of card update packs.
Right. So last year they put out the first expansion. They fleshed out the A deck into its full 168 cards. I guess I need to give some background, but the starter set for the revised edition has 48 A cards and 48 B cards. And then the full decks are supposed to be 168 per deck. So last
Because
year
that's
they
a nice
put out
round number, right? It's you know, like
Yeah,
80,
so the idea is if you play 7 cards per game, you'll be able to go through a full deck for 4 players or 3 players or 2 players, 3 full games without having to see the same card twice.
Nice.
So,
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, so they have the correct number of 3+ player cards, the correct number of 4+ player cards, etc., to make that happen. And that's how 168 happened. It's their round number, even
Makes
though
sense.
you may not think of it.
No, I get it. I get it now. Yeah, it's 28 times 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
28 times 3 times 2 because they're wait, or is it? Is my math that bad?
168. I want to say it's 24 times 7, but I don't really. I'm not. Yeah, 28 times 3 times 7.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
okay, there we go. So so you have played though competitively Agricola, and you actually got a chance to take a full expenses paid trip.
Yes, they. You win the nationals, and they happen to be hosting the World Championships in southern Germany. So, you got to get your competitors out there somehow. So they put us up in a small, or not a small hotel. It was a small city, Altenburg, Germany, which happens to be the home of the factory where they make the game. So we got a factory tour, a big board game factory before our World Championship experience. So it was a blast. I think about that weekend a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. So, Andy, to compare this to like 18xx games, you would be having to have the entire competition in some dude's garage.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
Or
really cool.
what the hotel in Chattanooga where
Oh,
everyone's like, it's on a train station, it's wonderful, and people get there, they're like, oh, it's gonna be so, and then they look at the rooms, they're like, yeah.
Well, apparently WBC was like that for a very long time, where like the place where it was held actually had got flooded the year that they left, so they would have actually had to like suspend the convention had they stayed in the same place. Now it's like condemned. So we all move on up as people gain catch wind of it. They attend, and then it grows, and then you need a nicer place, and need a nicer place. Like WBC was just a really smooth convention experience, which Lumin was among. How many conventions total? You had like about 5 to 8 or so, somewhere in that range.
Let's see. I'm just gonna count them off because I can't count them one at a time, except just saying them out. So in February, I went to the Arizona Game Fair in Phoenix. There are 3. Thrice yearly is the LA regional convention I go to every year, Strategicon. Shout out to them. Possibly the best regional convention weekend that I've seen throughout my travels.
And they do that 3 times a year?
3 times a year on the long weekends. So President's Day, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. So we got the Labor Day coming up in a couple weeks, which I'm excited for. I went to Origins in Columbus for the Catan Nationals this year in June. I went to WBC for a week and a half. Then the next week was Gen Con, and I'm here in New York for a week. And then I'm going to London for this event called the Mind Sport Olympiad.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Which I just looked up and researched last year, and I was like, oh my God, I need to go to this. Because not only do I love competing in Eurogames, I also love, but am terrible at, and I mean really terrible, in chess and poker. And they feature those games a lot too. So, it sounded like a total blast. Combining all 3, they have this award called the Pentamind. So if the best in 5 different game types, you win this like really cool award, and there's a line in a Wikipedia entry about it. So that'd be cool too.
Well, if you're wondering what my resume after my first WBC, I advanced in one and only one event, and that would be the Slapshot competition. Which Slapshot, in case you were wondering, is the closest game to war you will find in modern board games. I won my first round, baby.
Sweet.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a painful to maybe to admit. It was actually a lot of fun. You guys are just give it credit, man. The WBC crowd is they know whether a game is to be taken seriously or not, and if a game is not to be taken seriously, it is a grand old time with people showing up in hockey outfits for Slapshot because it's just a ridiculous game. It's one that I'm pretty sure couldn't even be reprinted in 2018 because some of the cards in that game are like borderline offensive. Yeah, they're not. No, but it was just a grand old time, and like I didn't get a chance to compete all that much, which is my excuse for why I suck. Mm-hmm. But it was still a great time, and I loved the atmosphere, and I really hope to come back and actually start planning out the convention, for like that whole 10-day span. So you were in WBC for the whole 10 days?
Yes, I was there for the whole 10 days. Got in on the Friday, got some practice games of Agricola in before the tournament on Saturday. And I landed with a stroke of good fortune in an amazing group, including one of the fans of this podcast, Derek.
Yeah, Derek!
Yeah, shout out to him and all the friends, because just one of them I knew tangentially on Facebook, and just welcomed me in that group with open arms, and a group of terrific gamers, even better people, made it a real blast for me. We stayed in a
even
condo.
Better people, because they're not that good at being gamers, but they're really nice people. It makes them I'm picking apart your words, Lumin. I'm just messing with you, dude.
No, but like one of my condo mates was last year's Terraforming Mars champion out of over 200 players, and another one of them was this year's Terraforming Mars champion. One of them was last year's Agricola champion. They have a bunch of other championships in games I have never played. So, no, they're amazing people.
Yeah. Oh, they definitely have some success behind their belt with the games that they compete in. They compete at a very high level, and I enjoyed discussing strategy. Even though I wasn't anywhere to be seen in any of these finals tables, I can at least listen to strategy and understand. I understand why it would be so good. And now I'll go back, and when we play Terra Mystica, Andy and Trent, we're gonna have a good time. It's gonna be real.
That's one game I really need to do more practice in.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, though, just WBC, the entire mentality of it is like, you don't just play the games that you're good at, right? You prioritize those ones, but there's enough time in that 10-day period, if you're there for that, or even if you're just there for the back end of the convention, there's enough time where you're going to have some time free, and it's very encouraged that you participate in more events. I mean, just maybe on the off chance that you will advance, because they do have like an overarching champion, like the console, and you're gaining laurels, and they'll get printed on your badge. But that's really, I mean, even if that's not a motivating factor, it's just that like you get to spend time, and there's always somebody who's very passionate about the game because they're the one that's running the tournament, and they are not competing. They are just running the tournament because they love it.
Yeah, so as an example of that, one game that I was trash at going into WBC and came out of it as a good player, you might laugh at this, but Splendor. I could not win a game of it to save my life.
Trent's probably laughing, right, Trent?
Yeah, it's a game that I don't really like, but my kid continually beats me at, and I don't really know why.
Yeah. So basically at WBC, I lost my first heat of Splendor, and, I got showed how to play a winning strategy, basically, against me. And then it was easy enough to copycat that because it's only Splendor. I hope that doesn't offend anyone, but it's only Splendor.
I have gotten no better at chess, being constantly creamed by my wife at it.
Good job. You got to be able to learn, Andy, or use it against others.
If you want to feel even worse, have you ever heard of the game Rubik's Race?
Oh yeah, I used to do Rubik's Cubes when I was in high school, so I've heard of Race.
Now, the Rubik's Race game, I'll be dang lucky if I'm halfway finished before my wife slams it down and beats me.
Cubing is a big thing at our house.
My wife is,
cool.
Yeah, she's a Rubik's Cube nut. Like, I just find new puzzles to give her, and she invariably has them solved by the end of the day.
Oh, that's cool.
She's up to like a 12 by 12 now, I think.
Nice.
The gross, as they call it. The old gross.
Yeah. Or she has another one that when you scramble it, it's not even in a cube shape anymore. You have to get it.
We have a couple of those. We have a few of those.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the twisty puzzles are great. A class of its own.
Yeah. No, it's insane. But yeah, no, it's funny because, Lumin, your story actually sounds a lot like my wife's chess coach. He was like a computer programmer, and he decided he wanted to see if he could like make a life out of chess. So he like quit doing it, and he's like in Portland now with like 3 other guys all in a room. This is like he's basically
making it sound like you're talking about TC, dude.
But yeah, he's just completely focused on chess, and actually, the sad part, he's kind of getting discouraged because he's kind of at that edge where the savings are starting to run out. So if he can't like get over the hump and make a living, he's got to go back to computer programming.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like what I'm doing, except I know there's no career.
Yeah, no, it's an end. Yeah, board gaming cannot be a life. Yeah.
It's just more of a speed bump.
There's no $10 million prizes for winning board game tournaments.
Well, you're catching some air on the speed bump, and we're here to listen to you while you tell us how great it is.
There's really nothing like it. I was hoping that it would, calm down my obsession over gaming a bit, so I could focus more on actual work when I get a job again. But that's to be seen. I'm still feeling pretty good about it. So.
There's some pretty awesome opportunities that you have, and some. I mean, maybe when you look back in hindsight, you'll be happy and ready and feel fulfilled. So I mean, maybe there's that, like not so much to calm down the obsession, but to fulfill it so that you can then do it while you're doing other things. I mean, that's sort of what the summer is for me as a teacher every year, to just try to follow some passions and try to see what you can make out of things, but then always assume that you're going to come back and you're going to back to the day-to-day and everything, and
it's like the nerdier version of the person that like goes and hikes around Tibet for a year before college.
Wow, what a compliment, Lumin. That is you, dude. Other people do the Santiago de Compostela, the El Camino, and you're making it to all the board game things. You're at the right place where we can appreciate it. I haven't heard from TC. TC, have you anything to add yet, man? I haven't heard your voice in so long.
I'm enjoying the conversation. I find it really fascinating. I mean, I really not gotten to. I think it's great we have King of Misery Farm on the podcast here.
This is why I don't let you talk, TC.
But no, I really enjoy listening to people who are really passionate about gaming and really pursue it. Yeah, keep going, man. I'm enjoying this. This is awesome.
For sure.
TC and I need to start the campaign for North Africa tournament.
You got me. Well,
if we have a finalist before everyone in the tournament has died.
Right.
So, question, Lumin. We both were at WBC, and this is how tangentially connects to TC because he's a big fan of GMT games.
Oh yeah, I'm a big war gamer, man.
Okay.
I love that stuff.
And so the war game, like WBC started as a war gamer convention. There's like primarily a lot of war gamers are playing war games. Now, I didn't see like any of them, and I also just kind of could tell by the name like that, it was a battle in World War II. Thus, it's going to be a war game, and thus probably not going to be one that I should attend the demo and then participate in the tournament for.
Oh, you don't want to go to the 2-hour training session for like
Here I
stand or whatever?
And then still not understand after 2 hours what's going on.
Yeah, you're I misunderstand.
Make a lot of mistakes. Like, I know what to do next time if I remember after playing this thing.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the funny themes about board gaming conventions, actually, is separation of different types of gamers. So at WBC, I think all the war games were in one of the back buildings, right? In the Foggy Goggle, like ski lodge.
Yeah.
Like in this separate building, not the main one where all the board gaming is happening.
The couple pictures I saw of like the monster war games that were being played there looked like they were in like some darkened nook.
Yeah, so sometimes it's the RPGs that get that room. Sometimes it's the war games. Yeah.
No, for sure. It's like they go to the Shining Hotel while we're in like the nice mini mall, like food court like hotel, right? And they're like walking down, they're riding their big wheels to the down the halls. No, I'm starting to sound mean. No, it seemed like there was something there for everybody, and it's a very inclusive environment. I mean, I'm sure that if I wanted to attend one of those, it would have been the same environment that I'd gotten everywhere else, which was just like, oh, hey, let me help you. And like you mentioned, Lumin, even in a tournament environment, we're still human beings to each other, and we still are all like, I mean, most of us have a dozen games that we enjoy, and we're not going to like stop the entire world because somebody, forgot to take $1 and now is asking. It's one of those things where if you get to the finals tables, expect it to be a different environment than if you're in the initial heats. And so for most people, aka me, you only make it to the initial heats, and so the environment is always very friendly and okay with at least some level of take backsies if it's, you know, an instance where you can sort of make the case. But
Right.
yeah, when you get to that finals, you don't, like, you're going to go into that with the mindset of like, I wouldn't let other people do it, so I'm not going to ask for it myself. Like, that's just
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't play Firefly with my wife's chess coach.
makes the Firefly game into a chess tournament feeling
No, like,
environment.
yeah, no, because I did it once, and like, I'm like, oh, I did those, like, because you always get 2 actions. I'm like, I did them out of order. I'm like, can I go back and switch those? He's like, no take backs, and I'm like, it's Firefly.
Which is what I say when somebody's like, do you want to play it? And I'll say, it's Firefly.
So just a final anecdote about that, you know, take-backs idea. I was watching the Terraforming Mars final at WBC, and the GM explicitly told all the players, help each other remember all the tiny things that happen in Terraforming Mars.
You can get those big tableaus.
It can get really messy.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
So I
really
thought that
cool.
was a great example of, you know, the sportsmanship being key, not necessarily, you know, screw your opponents because they forgot a tiny thing.
Like, I noticed it, and I was waiting for you to ask, because no.
Well, and I think that's fair, because I think, you know, a lot of, and it's good they do that, because I think, like, a lot of board gamers like me, and I'm sure others, kind of, like, have this image of, like, say, what a Magic tournament's going to be like.
Judge!
I need this. And,
Your sleeves are somewhat transparent. I call a win.
yeah. No, and, like, those weird cases can happen at, like, you know, my wife's chess tournaments too, but for the most part, like, it's pretty congenial there or whatnot. But, you know, I was teasing her actually wearing over them, like, man, you think a board game tournaments are a bunch of introverts. Go to a chess tournament. Oh my God.
Silence is the norm.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
isn't
no,
it a rule that you have to be silent? You can't talk.
Oh
during the
yeah,
game?
no, you can get in way big trouble for like extraneous noise. Like I went to go check on how she was doing, and I was wearing flip flops, and I about walked in with them, and I'm like, oh crap! So I was like walking around the chess hall barefoot, holding my flip flops.
You have like squeaky shoes, and you can't go talk to your wife.
Oh no, they have a rule now. Like, if you're in the tournament, like you can't even bring your cell phone in the building.
You can't even like chew gum. You can't smack gum like.
Well, no, like too many people were cheating with them. Like
Oh.
it got really bad. Like to the point like you couldn't take your cell phone to the bathroom because people were going to the bathroom and like running their chess programs to see how to do their next moves.
Yeah, well, I feel like at any of these other, I don't know, man. I guess maybe this is just me, and maybe this is just my small-mindedness that I'm not able to get out of. But like the idea of cheating in any of the tournaments at WBC, or just any of these competitive play tournaments, like to me, the amount of shame that I would just feel internally because I cheated at something that's, you know, like let's all call a spade, right? It's like these are games that we're all there, you know, we're playing to enjoy ourselves. Like if you're cheating, like that's like just changing the whole dynamic. It's like, man, you are playing a different, you're participating in a different hobby than I am.
Yeah.
If that even, you know, like, because like to me, I think Lumin, something that we shared together when we first played Agricola is like, you know, being able to take it to that next level. I have so much respect for that. And like, you know, that the idea of cheating just totally betrays what I'm even there for, which is to like sort of further my understanding of a game system and, and to
did you
hear
to pick up
new skills
on the ludology when Jeff Engelstein said like the one time he cheated, he still feels horrible, but it was like 1830 and he had made this long intricate plan that took 2 hours to work out, and he got there and his calculations were off by $1. And so it was like a tournament, and so he like threw the chip so it smashed all the piles over so no one could count out that he had like $1 less than he was supposed to be.
Oh my goodness. Wow, he sounds so devious.
Yeah, it did. It like, yeah, he's like, I still feel horrible about that. He's like, that's the only time I ever did anything like that.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I don't understand the idea of cheating either, because I'm just like, why would you feel good at that. But I was a middle school teacher though, so like they all talk about how they use aim hacks on first-person shooter games. So,
well, I think that one thing that helps board games stay away from cheating is that there are no real prizes.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no incentive.
I think WBC might have the best board game prizes outside of travel that I've ever seen, and it's just a piece of wood with the game name on it. Like,
was it the WBC? Was that the one where they had like that Ticket to Ride scandal a few years ago?
No, that was the national championship of Ticket to Ride.
Oh, okay.
Where the guy cheated, and or actually it was the world championship. So there you do have some stakes. Being called the world champion. But yeah, that guy cheated.
Wow.
One of the rare
WBC
instances.
has not had any cheating
scandals.
I didn't
think it was that. I wasn't for sure.
I don't want to say they haven't had any, but let's just say that I've never caught wind of any WBC cheating scandals.
Yeah.
Yeah, my experience. So, Lumin, I know that you haven't been yet to the decathlon, pentathlon here coming up in the Mind.
Pentathlon.
But how would you? I mean, you've become like one thing I noticed. Like you've become very adept at just being able to you're just prepared for the convention environment. I mean, what are some of the keys to success in attending board game conventions?
So just like.
Oh no!
Did he go away?
Is he gone?
Can you see me? Okay.
Yeah, we can see you, but whatever you said, I think you were asking a clarification question, and I think that one kind of got. Yeah, I didn't hear it. Nobody heard what you said there.
Okay. So what I said was, I don't know if you mean like in a competition way or in a have fun way, but I'll just cover all my big tips, I guess. So one thing that really helped me have a good time at conventions was making friends the first time you go to a specific convention. Mm-hmm. Once you start making con friends, especially in the games that you're playing, that's the most natural way to make friends, I think. Yeah. Once you have a set of friends that at the convention, you can go back to them later in the weekend and say, oh, what are you playing? Maybe you'll learn a new game this way, or maybe they'll approach you. And then you talk about games. Maybe you play something new. Once you get a gaming group, or if you have your gaming group, go to cons together. It really makes a difference. You'll stay in the same room. You might separate during the day to play your own things or go to your own dealer hall, whatever you do. But, if you have anchors to be with, like at the end of the day, and like to talk about your experience, I find that makes the whole experience a ton better. So just the ability to make new friends in the games you like, and to use existing friends, whether from part A or not, just like really increases the fun you have at conventions. You kind of can encourage each other to go out, branch out, meet new people, and play new games. And that's a huge benefit too. In terms of performance, if you really want to play a game well, you do have to practice and, look up all the strategy articles you can, figure out which ones are telling the truth and which ones are outdated and bad. And then get a lot of practice in. Find the online place where all the best players play and just play against them. Ask questions if you want to be good at a game. Don't just go in your own head and say, oh, I know I'm right, but I can never win. Because I know a lot of good players who are good but never get to that level of great because they're just not willing to ask questions of the top experts and just accept what the experts say. So that's something to watch out for if you want to become really good at a game, is one tip I would say. And experts in a game have never failed to help me out, whether it was Catan or Agricola when I was starting out. They told me in Agricola, look at free points and food. Those are great. And it wasn't something I intuitively understood until they told me. So just tips like that.
Yeah, sometimes there's simple tips and sometimes they're more in-depth strategies. But yeah, I mean, just by the proximity to being, to where you can make friends with players, and then also just being where the good players are. And then, you stick with the good ones enough and you find yourself being one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And my wife actually had some really good advice too given to her, because she had at this last chess tournament, she had an off day. Like she was just like emotionally crushed by it. And it was a lot of like coming to a head of a lot of many things. But her coach told her the next day, I don't want you to worry about it. Just go have fun. And that brought it all back, and she was fine. Like, and I think that's important. Like, you can get too much into competition, and because with board gaming, like, I think one of the worst things that can happen in board gaming, or one of the worst kind of people you can play with in a group, is the person who really cares about winning too much. Like, you want to be competitive, but it can be really bad. I know. Basically, it's hard to have that be around that gamer that if they don't win, it's a horrible time.
Yeah, I would say that what Luke talked about is actually almost a solution of sorts that I would offer to the, if you find yourself feeling upset when you're not winning, talk to the player that is winning. You know, talking about that strategy, like sort of synthesizing what all went down to leading. I mean, it makes you feel better about like what decision you made that maybe went wrong, or maybe it was something that they did where they saw what you were doing coming a mile away, and all along there was things that you did that you could have maybe changed, or maybe
the chess equivalent is analyzing the games afterwards. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That's like, competitive chess, like everybody does that. If they can't do it that night, like if they have to, de-stress, they're definitely doing it the next day.
Cool. So, Lumin, in like we've mentioned before, you haven't been through this entire year, but is there any one convention that you are sure you're going to make? Like, which is the one that if you had to sacrifice all the other ones, which one would you do?
This is so impossible for me to answer, honestly. So,
is that like choosing your favorite child?
It might be. So there's an overarching reason I go to these, and it's for like the national competitions, right? So these are kind of spread out now. So the Catan National Championship, I've been going to on and off for like 5 or 6 years now. Friends there. I'm friends with the.
Okay, Lumin, we're losing you there, dude. I didn't catch what you just said.
Sorry. I'm kind of losing you guys once in a while, too. I hope it's not my connection. Yeah. So Origins, I couldn't see myself missing because I'm really friendly with the Catan people, whether that's competitors or the organizers. And that's the only thing I go to Origins for. But it's so worth it to spend the whole them playing Catan and talking about it.
Yeah.
To play in the Nationals every year. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. I'm hearing you. You got it for a little bit, but there was enough there to piece it together.
Okay. Yeah, so Gen Con, there's always a Nationals I play in. This year was Pandemic. Last year was Agricola. Next year is probably going to be Agricola again, so I can't miss that. WBC was such a great event, but it's a week and a half. I loved the competition, but it's a 4-hour flight and a 1.5-hour shuttle away from me in California, so it's so inaccessible. I would have to take a week and a half off of work. I'm not a teacher, so I don't have the summer off naturally. There's so many blocking factors to that.
And being the teacher, it doesn't help because a lot of the other great ones are during the school year, and you get 1-2 personal days that you actually can pick.
So all in all, it seems like the convention I'll never miss is just that local regional one 3 times a year in LA. I expect myself to live near LA, so if everything goes to plan, I'll be making those for sure. But that's kind of where board game competitiveness or having fun in gaming groups starts, right? In my opinion, it comes from those local conventions where you meet the gamers near you. You play the games that are hot in your area, which actually is a thing. And, you get to know people. You have a ton of fun with them. It's a big networking place.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That's where you sort of where it sprouts from. So, and I mean, not everybody has a beautiful 3 times a year gaming convention right across. Some of us live in remote places, Lumin, and some of us have to drive 6 hours, and that's not that bad.
Right. No, I admire the dedication of so many people who go to WBC and do 6-hour drive, 10-hour drive.
There are people who are flying from the opposite side of the globe and do that every year. Yeah, it's like a collection of what I would say, in general, like very high functioning individuals, very high level of competition, even at the heats that you'll play. But then at the same time, just very inclusive. I don't want to make it sound like, people are like, well, I'm not smart enough, so I probably shouldn't start at WBC. No, you belong. Yeah, there's a place for you at WBC. There's a place for you at these conventions. You know, it's just whether or not the convention is the style that you're looking for, right? So
right.
Yeah,
And I
so
actually
they have the
wanted to make
place
that
that's
point.
like the kids' table at Thanksgiving. No, I'm kidding.
it's called the Pufferbilly Room, Andy.
Oh,
No,
I
it's
do not
absolutely
like
not.
that
I'm just,
experience.
no, that's not true. We have a lot of train gamers that love listening to this podcast. I apologize. It was just a joke.
But
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
rewind. I want to rewind 1 point back, if you don't mind. I was going to
go
say
ahead.
that Gen Con is one of those events where there's literally something for everyone.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can spend the whole weekend doing your favorite thing and that only. So this year I was almost 100% into the tournaments because I had a few different ones that I signed up for or was invited to. So I just did that for most of my weekend. But there's so many people who just stay in the vendor hall all weekend and play demos, look at what's new for sale. There's some people who probably play in the free gaming rooms all weekends with their friends or trying out the Rio Grande demos or something to that effect. So Gen Con is the best example of you can do anything you want. But even at the regional conventions, you can usually fill your schedule, whether it's open gaming with people you just met or, you know, tournaments that you love to play.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that, man. That was a nice little advertisement for actually, we're going to be traveling back in time for everybody who didn't, because we're recording it tomorrow, but it will actually release before the episode that we're doing right now. Trent and I are going to do a Gen Con recap. So,
very cool.
Yep.
Might have a little hype about that.
Yeah. Well, speaking of hype, before we move on, Lumin, is there any final thoughts that you'd like to impart with the world before you go back along your whole board gaming odyssey?
I didn't really prepare this. I wish I was at a computer and could have written down notes. I'm sure there was a couple other things I wanted to say, but they're out of my head right now. So I think just, you know, make sure to have fun playing, whether in whatever style you want, whether that's competitive like me or casually. There's really no wrong way to play games, and just make sure you're having a good time with good people.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. And we'll now move into our hype section of this episode. And why don't we use that Gen Con as a bridge to go into Trent's hype, because it's a pretty big bomb that's been dropped on the gaming populace and competitive and casual gamers alike.
I think this is more TC's hype, and I was going to chime in. But
Okay.
Wait.
Yeah.
Did I think I read that wrong. I think I just read the word and assumed it was going to be Trent. I apologize, Trent, and I apologize, TC.
Oh,
TC, you sir, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know, going into this Gen Con, you know, I was kind of jaded. I'm like, yeah, there's nothing going to happen. Yeah, nothing exciting is going to come out of Gen Con. Yeah, it's going to be a bunch of crap we don't care about. Blah, 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 down. Nothing cool is going to happen. And, of course, every year, I always underestimate, but Fantasy Flight does their in-flight and, like, drops the microphone and does something bananas. Last year, it was, like, out of nowhere, the Twilight Imperium 4th edition. And this year, there was a lot of speculation of what the next living card game was going to be. And in fact, we've actually discussed it quite a bit on this podcast, going, well, since Netrunner's gone and they killed Star Wars, the card game, and, you know, what the next thing was going to be. We're like all speculating and Trent saying stuff. And we knew I knew for sure it was going to be some other living card game they're just going to pump out. And then Richard Garfield walks out on the stage and announces Keyforge. And it is like the most ambitious thing I have ever seen a company put out. I was floored by this announcement. When he came out and described what it was, what this game was going to do, what they were trying to achieve, just the production and the design going into this alone is almost mind-blowing. When you consider all the cards they got to do, all the unique decks that are coming out. I am super intrigued with this for two reasons. One, maybe it will stop Kate from buying so many Munchkin boosters because we're buying a lot of Munchkin boosters. And buying a $10 pre-constructed deck does have a lot of appeal for me and my budget.
Yeah.
Two, I know Fantasy Flight is. I mean, we've seen this with Legend of the Five Rings. They will support this thing. They're going to have like launch parties. They're going to have organized play kits. I don't know how this thing's going to work. I don't know how the app's going to integrate into it. I spent all day going into this podcast looking at, because they handed out like copies, and Well, I've seen how it's played. I don't see how they're going to do it, but I am like super intrigued with this whole thing. The Keyforge. Please, Trent, what did you find out about it?
Okay,
I'm just on the end of the screen here.
I was at the in-flight when they were talking about it, and I walked out like 10 seconds before they handed out decks.
Ah!
Literally my worst move at Gen Con.
You failed.
I got a message that I need, that like, where are you? We need to find you. And I thought they were just done, so I walked out. Anyway, aside from that,
they pulled the Oprah, and you were like, look under your chairs, and
I don't know what they did, but I know that whatever they did in terms of like a handout, I missed it. And so I don't really know. Whatever. I missed it. It was my fault. I'm an idiot. Whatever.
Well, it's launching in September, isn't it? It's not that far away.
No, it's not that far away.
Yeah.
I demoed it at the Fantasy Flight booth. Just played a game of it, and it's a very interesting game. I got the sense that you're going to want to play your deck that you get. So, okay, the way the game works is I guess you could call it collectible, but what it actually is when you go and buy a deck of Keyforge, it's sold in decks for $9.99. This is literally a unique deck with a unique back that no other deck will ever have.
And a unique name, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. It has the name written on the back of the deck, and every single deck ever printed has a unique name and a unique back.
Yeah, they're using the same tool that Microsoft, that your Microsoft name. So like Sunbaked Jeep and
it's like a Diablo weapon name generator type of thing. Like they name weapons in Diablo kind of thing. Where they put all these prefixes and suffixes and different things. And that's how they do it. So that's printed uniquely on every card in your deck, so you can't really mix up decks. You just go buy this $9.99 deck, and that's the deck you have, and you have to play with it. And the way Keyforge works is they're basically 7 spheres. I'm not sure exactly what the term is. 7 colors, if you're thinking in terms of Magic.
Classes or something, yeah,
classes. And your deck has 3 of them. And the way I understood it is your deck has like 1 main card in it and 12 cards of each of the 3 factions that are in your deck. And there's semi-random. There's some mechanism to it where your decks are random but not 100% random. They're like meant to be playable. I don't know, they see some algorithm in the background, but every deck is going to play differently. And my feeling was when I played the demo was, you're going to need to play your deck a few times to understand how it actually works and play it well. It's like not when you just sit down like, doot, and then like, well, this is boring, I'll play another deck. They actually have some replayability within the decks. It's hard for me to assess, from one demo how much depth this has, but it's interesting enough to me that I'm going to get the starter set and then a couple of the decks at least just to play around with. I can see this being a big hit in my house if I have like a handful of the decks that people can just grab and play it with. So that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. I am super. I mean, this is a bold choice by Fantasy Flight. I mean, I can't imagine how long this thing was in production, design, what it takes to print these things out to do the way it does. My daughter watched the announcement video, and she was like, "Oh, Dad, it's like Cosmic Encounter, the card game. This looks amazing." She's like watching videos on how to play it. She's already volunteered to run the launch event with the guy who runs the game shop. She is sold. So I'm on board for this roller coaster. I'm just going up this thing going, I don't know how this is going to turn out, guys, but I hope it's a fun ride. So
are you just going to adopt a new one, TC? It sounds like, I guess you already said that. You're hoping that this will sort of eclipse the Munchkin collectible card game.
Yeah, because we'll get into it in later episodes, but our foray into trying to find Munchkin players ended up finding out the lack of support this game has in our area. And so I'm kind of hoping that, it'll be like, hey, look, this cool thing that other people are playing. Yeah.
Yay. Yeah, the company actually cares to make it available to you and stuff. So very, very cool. So
but I'm just blown away by just the how, I mean, coming from Fantasy Flight, something so bold and innovative. I was like, holy cow. I mean, I would not have told you going into this that their solution after losing Netrunner was just to hire Richard Garfield and design something completely different. It's like, wow, that's actually kind of cool. And just go a route that no one else is going with this thing. So I'm curious to see how this all falls out. And once again, Fantasy Flight surprises me at Gen Con, I have to say.
Yeah, very cool. And right there with you, Trent and TC. I mean, that it's such an interesting system. It's certainly one that I want to try. I mean, it seems like it's trying to keep that bar so that you can infinitely enter into it without really, but still offering the experienced players, like the competitive environments in which they're going to really flourish. So, well, let's just use Trent. You're the bridge between TC's hype and my hype. Because I see that your name is actually on both of our lists here. Because it's like we covered TC, you and I. We got Trent covered here. We covered both his bases.
We got it.
I basically sat down and asked myself, what should I hype on this episode? And they had already named both of them, so I was like, well, there you go.
Here we go.
Well, Trent? Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to do the honors?
Go for it. Go right ahead.
I'm kind of prepared for it because I was around when it was getting like sort of. When sort of the elevator pitch was being said several times. So I'm speaking about the follow-up game, the sister game, as it's named in the rule book, to Tigris and Euphrates, which is called Yellow and Yangtze.
Oh, God, I'm so excited about this one.
Yes. Okay, so Tigris and Euphrates is in my opinion, a very dangerous game to remake. It's especially if it was done by somebody, like it's like redoing a Bob Dylan song. It's not something you do unless you're either one of two things, which is stupid or Bob Dylan. And in this case, they've got Reiner Knizia, who has designed a follow-up game to Tigris and Euphrates that does a few things to sort of make it so that the game is a more fluid experience and offers more strategic challenges and actually has more options at the table and more things that you can do to get yourself out of the sort of pickles that you might find yourself in the game. Anybody who's new to the hobby or who's never heard of the game Tigris and Euphrates, it's actually a very pivotal game. I've heard it being, one of the folk legends is that it's the whole reason that BoardGameGeek.com, the site that we know and love, it started as a place for people to talk about how much they love Tigris and Euphrates, because it really is like that sort of mixture of a game that feels like it could have been around for millennia, like Go, together with the modern tabletop. And you'll see that Yellow and Yangtze maintains in my opinion, it looks to maintain what makes Tigris and Euphrates great, but then adds a few different new buzzwords that just make me super, super excited. So one of the first and most obvious changes is that the board is the map of the Yellow and Yangtze rivers, which tend to flow in such a way that you've got a unique map. But not only that, there are now hexes instead of squares that you're going to be placing on the map. So hexes instead of squares, one of the big things. And now there's a fifth color, yellow, which is in the shortest supply in the bag, and you now have a yellow leader. Yellow is a wild color that can count towards anything else. Very, very nice. And now you can do things with all of your leaders when they're in front of you. Anybody who's played Tigris and Euphrates, it's kind of an abstract. It's like you're growing out an area, but you can have where it's tough to really describe. It's like these kingdoms, and you'll put down your leaders in kingdoms, and then you'll try to continue to add on tiles to a kingdom that will grow that kingdom in such a fashion where you are going to end up being sort of like the king that keeps on collecting the goods or whatever cubes there are of the color that you are the leader of, and you keep on doing this, and you try to totally space your stuff out because it's that Knizia scoring that I talked about in Amun, where you score only the lowest of all the different colors of cubes that you have. You only score the one you have the least of. So, I mean, it still maintains all those classic things that you know and love, but now, whereas before, if you got a leader off the board, you just had to waste an action putting him back on. Now your leader in front of you actually fulfills a function. Like, he's good for you. Like, it counts as though you have a tile of that color in many cases in your possession that you don't have to spend. Very, very cool that way. Now, other players can actually enter into conflicts. So whereas the first game I played of Tigris and Euphrates, I was accused of doing something that caused another player to win the game. They were totally right. I was an idiot. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I would just play and I'd be like, this starts a conflict, right? Okay, I want to see how this works. And be like, what I essentially did was made one player at the table into this like monster of like having all of the stuff. So, but even that sort of monster strategy, that monster that can end up being formed if a player is playing suboptimally, no longer happens because you end up losing. Like when you win a war, you still have to pay the cost of battle. Whereas before, it's just the loser that had to pay a penalty. Now the winner has to pay a penalty in the bigger wars. So, I mean, there's all sorts of different elements here that lead to this being just a more modernized imagining without losing anything of the beautiful things that made Tigris and Euphrates great. Now you can also, the pagodas that are monuments, you can move them about once they've been built, and they're a little bit easier to build because they only take 3 tiles instead of the 4 you needed to have. I mean, there's a lot of it just checks a whole bunch of boxes that are like, okay, that's something I remember being kind of frustrating occasionally in Tigris and Euphrates, and it's like, yep, not a problem anymore. Yep, not a problem, but still has all the strategy. So, Trent, what was it that sold you on Yellow and Yangtze? What is it that made you not say, oh, you can't touch Tigris and Euphrates? It's my baby.
The way that the green tiles are smoothed out with the market, that's one of the things that always frustrated me about Tigris and Euphrates. Sometimes you just go draw tiles and you'd be like hosed because of the random draw, and now there's some control over it.
Mm-hmm.
That is the number one thing that appealed to me about it.
Yes, there's actually a tile drafting line where you can actually choose stuff. Yeah, that's such a huge addition as well.
That's the big thing.
Yeah.
So it looks awesome. And to me, the story, which we'll talk more on the Gen Con episode, which people who are listening to this, maybe you've already heard us talk about it. But the fact that Knizia is one of those designers who's big enough to essentially choose who he works with, and he's chosen to work with somebody who's really just a passionate fan of what the doctor is giving to us in terms of these designs, and not just looking for somebody who's going to commercialize it and get in the most money, but somebody who's going to make the product that he wants gamers to have. It's like a love letter to all of us that have known and love his designs. And WBC is one of those examples of a place where it's like there's 2 types of games: the new hotness and then the classics. And there's no more classics than Reiner Knizia games at WBC. So that will lead us now here into Lumin. You're going to tell us a little bit about the it was a Kickstarter game, right? It's like got all these like pretty forests and stuff. I saw the artwork. It looks really beautiful. Tell us about.
So I'm going to disappoint you all because I didn't put much research into this, the reason I chose Everdell as my hype game is because I picked up a copy at Gen Con for a friend, and I shipped it from Indy back to LA. Mm-hmm. And throughout that process, it wasn't very long, but I got a really good look at the box. I got the breakdown of like what type of game it is. It's a worker placement game. It's like some resource management, I believe. And it has a really solid theme. The forest theme is completely explored as far as I can tell. You're a bunch of little animals with great looking wooden critters and like foresty resources. So I thought this is kind of like Agricola. And like, I don't know, it appears to be really well done. So I would be excited to play it one day. It's just that I honestly haven't put much more research into it than that.
You've done the research of looking at the box, man. There are times when I have given hypes that are the opposite of hypes, just so you know. It's like I will say the name of the game and then just start shaking my head, which is not good for audio podcasts, but then I usually come up with something salty enough that's like, why is this a thing? So hype is what you make it, Lumin. It's
right. So I'll just leave it at that, short and sweet. It has a bunch of mechanics that I would love to continue playing and a theme that looks amazing. So there you go.
Lumin likes it because it looks like it's kind of Agricola.
Right.
All right, and now into Andy, who's looking at this Coin Fest. I'm wondering, should that have been all caps, Andy? Are you talking about like GMT Coin Fest? Has there been several announcements? Are you P500ing right? P500ing right now, Andy?
No, I'm only getting one thing through it, but I thought it worth announcing. But GMT and its P500 model sort of reprint system this year is doing what they call Coin Fest. So in mid-September, basically all the games they're putting out are coin. So the counterinsurgency games. So if you've been looking for particular titles or hoping to get them or whatever, this will be the month to get a hold of them. The nice thing they're doing too is all of the games, except I think Pendragon, the latest one, but I think pretty much all the games are getting upgrade kits that are, upgrading things a little bit. The expansion to Falling Sky is coming out during this time, which is what I've got out of the system because I prefer the ancient side of things.
Is that the first expansion to a coin game, or has there been others?
No, because Cuba Libre had one too.
That
Really?
that hasn't come out yet, has it? That's been
I don't
in
think so.
development forever.
Yeah. But anyway, they're just calling it Coin Fest, so they're re-releasing, I believe, all the old titles of coin games during this time, as well as upgrade kits for the new one and the expansion to Falling Sky, which is the part of it that I'm really interested in. So
I would like to point out that Fire in the Lake is probably getting the biggest upgrade kit because Mark Herman refuses to stop tweaking that thing. So that's by far the biggest one, and I think that's going to have the most significant tweaks to it. So I'm personally excited about that one.
Right, and a lot of the upgrade kits, I think for Falling Sky, they said it's mostly cosmetic. It's just like some thicker things, just slightly nicer. Although for Falling Sky, that's all coming with the expansion as well, so that it's not just that. But
Well, very cool, man. I mean, this is like showing just what type of critical mass the coin system has really attracted, and I'm very excited to see that. There was I saw Fort Sumter. Jeff Gamble bought a copy of Fort Sumter TC.
Oh, that is such a good game. I've been playing the crap out of that thing. That's good
I was
stuff.
surprised at how it is just a very, it's a very condensed, game. Like
it's a tight, fast, brutal game. It's good. If you want to play a game where you want to see what a clean design, that's a good one. It's an 8-page rule book from GMT. That's like unheard of.
Yeah, that's what I was so surprised by. I was like, holy crap, is this really all that there is? Usually it's
usually it's 8 pages of
encyclopedia
historical notes.
Yeah. Well, they still had the playbook with the historical notes. So, I mean, that was a separate thing. Yeah, just the 8 pages were the rule book. And this was 8 pages with, like, ample, huge diagrams. This wasn't like the 8 pages of 3-column, like, 8.1-B.
Me and Krista sat down with that thing, and we played it. She goes, that was fast. I'm like, yeah, it says 20 to 30 minutes on the back of the box. Like, oh, I didn't expect that. Let's play it again. Like, yep, this is a good game.
Well, that's awesome, dude. So, anyway, that's where we're good at now. So Lumin, you can go back to working out, dude.
Yeah, I don't work out on the daily, but here's the little mini gym that in the place I'm staying in. So there you go.
Yeah.
Nah, just give me a hard time. It's been great having you on, man. I really appreciate you.
It's been a blast
to come
on here.
And talk about it.
Great talking with all of you. Great to meet you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good having you on.
Well, folks, that ends this triumphant return of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly to our regular episodes. You're going to get treated to a quick. It'll be a live recording tomorrow morning. For everybody who's tuning in right now, for the rest of you, that will be the time warp in the GBU timeline, because that's episode 176 is right now, and that one's 175 because I'm going to get that out, and that'll be immediately posted because that's the Gen Con is now. Otherwise, it would be like 3 weeks down the road. So, but anyway, thanks to everybody who listens from back at home, and I'd like to just wish everybody a great week of gaming. From your host, Joe Sallin, also Andrew Dennison, Lumin Sperling, our special guest, TC Reed, and Trent Ham, wishing you a great week of gaming, and catch us next time on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.